On the political side of the crisis, President Obama's canceled events over the last few days to focus on Ebola. In fact, we were going to see him both in New Jersey and in Connecticut for some fundraising events. But in the meantime, as this goes on, lawmakers on Capitol Hill from both parties, but primarily Republicans, criticizing the government's response to the Ebola crisis. CDC Director Dr. Tom Frieden, he tried to reassure the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee that the disease only spreads through direct contact with bodily fluids. However, many members of the committee, they're calling for a travel ban from West African nations that are dealing with the outbreak.
People are scared. We need all hands on deck. We need a strategy, and we need to protect the American people, first and foremost. It's not a drill. People's lives are at stake, and the response so far has been unacceptable.
Trust me, that basically went on for 3 hours if you watched the hearings. All right, let's bring in our panel on this tonight here. Stephanie Meyer, the mayor of the great city of Syracuse and former co-chair of the New York State Democratic Committee. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Richard Brodsky, former Democratic New York State Assemblyman, now senior fellow at Demos, professor at NYU, and a full-fledged member of the media. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Try and put it in context. How many questions and concerns, and when you get pigeonholed when you're walking, is about Ebola, even if there's no direct connection to Syracuse or whatever, it seems to be on everybody's mind.
Well, I think the questions are really about competency. They want to be reassured that the government and the CDC has a handle on this, can handle it. We always hear about how we have the best healthcare system in the world. This is when we're going to see if we do indeed. And the CDC making the mistakes that they have has kind of put everybody on the back of their heels. Now's a time where we need people to have reassurance, because panic does not help anyone. It certainly doesn't solve a crisis, and it certainly won't help in this matter.
There have been competing sound bites, and I've had medical professionals on who try and put it in context of the total lives lost to the flu every single year and everything else. And they said, there will be other cases of Ebola, but this is not West Africa. This is the United States. We're going to get our hands around this and all the rest. The public doesn't always want to hear that. But when people come to you and say, is this something we should really be worried about or not, how would you answer it?
Well, I would say that, yes, it's right to be worried about, because there's so many unknowns right now. Mm-hmm. That's why they need to be reassured that the government has got a handle on it. Whether it was SARS or avian bird flu or West Nile virus, you have these new things that we're not experienced about. And so what do? We rely on public health specialists. And why do we rely on them? Because we trust them. And now all of a sudden you're seeing, well, geez, can we trust them? Should we trust them? So it's very important now to set those parameters and put some stakes in the ground to say, yes, we've got a handle on this. This is something that we're going to make sure is not an epidemic that is hurting West Africa, but there are very high standards of protocols that we have to put into place.
You mentioned the word protocols, and also there seems to be moving targets where different hospitals have different level of communication, formal policies in place, equipment to deal with this. You've got nurses in your family here, right? Have you gotten that as well, that there's confusion? And some people on the front lines, we all know the nurses run the hospitals, they felt like they've been left out to dry a little bit on this one, that their mistakes on the front lines when they say we haven't been brought into the loop on this. Have you heard that as well?
What I have heard is a real sense of, geez, we weren't really prepared for this. We talked about it, but we didn't have the drills. And once the actual patient zero came into place in Texas, nothing right seemed to happen. But what there has been a reassurance about is that people admitted and said right up front, we made a mistake, we didn't handle it as well as we should have, and now we're moving forward to make sure that we can do that. And it's also a good way to let other hospitals go through these drills, because everybody knows now it's real.
Don, we saw some of the political optics on this today. I'll get into a second about whether there should be travel bans, whatever. The president really, for the first time yesterday, it wasn't through a Q&A period, he talked about it, tried to put context that, hey, I hugged the nurses, I kissed the nurses, thanking them for what they did, and they've come in contact, obviously, with some of the patients in question here, trying to reassure people that it's not some spreadable airborne disease. Is it working?
No, it's not working. I've been at airports a lot in the last couple of days, and I got to tell you.
We missed you, by the way. Yes.
I missed you too, man. I love you, man.
Just don't cough on anybody.
Don't cough on anybody. And I'm a little biased because the mayor is from Syracuse, and that's where I went to school. So go Syracuse.
That's right.
But at the airports, Richard, everyone was around the monitors watching. And all you heard at the airports, like Madison, Wisconsin last night, was Ebola, Ebola, Ebola. And I watched these two women in particular. They were livid at the woman that was allowed to get on the flight. And so everyone, the president may be trying to reassure the country. Remember, I have always said from day one, I don't believe the experts know how you can get this type of disease or whatever you want to call it, Ebola. There are many of us that believe it's airborne, and I know that it could be airborne. I know you may disagree, and Andrew may disagree with me, but I'm on the side of some of these Republican lawmakers that say, hey, we need to slow down this travel from Africa. That's just how I feel.
All right, I watched way too much of the hearings today. Yeah, and I should have known better. But to both of you guys here, Andrew, I'll start with you. Clearly, the CDC's on the defensive here, whether the guy, whether they want to have him removed or not. They seem, at least the consensus is, we're going to let you hang out to dry here for a little bit before we ask for a resignation. I've maintained the president needed to get ahead of this a little bit more. I know there's a risk. You threaten if there's too visible on this that you increase the panic, that now you got the president. But he canceled events yesterday. You might as well, if he's going to change his schedule, get more in front of this with the American public. As Dominic says, I've been shocked at the amount of even intelligent people who follow this who are really concerned that this thing's going to spread like nothing else.
I'm just not sure what you want the president to say. I mean, he's not a medical expert. He's not a medical doctor. He can certainly compile the information that he's getting from his experts and say what they've been saying and perhaps say it a little bit better. But you and I have been talking the last couple of days. This is kind of the perfect spot where you would want a Surgeon General, which we don't have right now, thanks in part to obstructionism in the Senate. So I don't think I would want the president being the medical officer in chief. I think it would be better if we had a medical officer in chief.
You know, there's a counter narrative here to this rush to what I call the Dominic Carter theory of life, which is there have been similar public scares.
Usually when Dominic says that, he says, no offense, you know. So
I
you
mean,
didn't even...
I meant the
yeah,
offense.
yeah, exactly.
There have been similar public health scares that vanished. People will remember in the late Ford years, the swine flu thing, they spent billions on a vaccine and it turned out to be the cure for which there was no known disease. There's a way to get the experts functioning. Clearly, stuff should have been further up on the burner than it was. But the notion that this is now turning into an attack on Obama's competence, which is an election
I hear you.
on
I'm
this,
only telling you,
it's more the same
calls
nonsense.
for travel bans are going to get louder and louder. I got that one clearly from today from the hearings. If nothing else, they think of that as a political winner. And already candidates running for office are getting pressed as to whether or not they support it or not. So it's the perfect storm in many ways. Here we are close to November.
I would just say the prescription is the same that we've heard when it comes to other issues. Travel ban because we've got to secure the borders because Ebola and ISIS and Al-Qaeda could wind up crossing
Someway
the
they
Mexican.
tried to turn that into Mexico today. We got to stop it,
But,
you know.
when it fits an already pre-existing meme, I mean,
Yeah.
may as well just say if you had the Keystone Pipeline, you wouldn't have Ebola.
I got to get to a break. Yeah, well, when we come back, we're going to get a little closer to home, guys. Governor Cuomo's got his hands full these days. Got a new book out, Moreland Probe, hanging over his head, and he's also grappling with the Tappan Zee funding mess. We're going to hear what Mayor Meyer has to say about being a mayor under this particular administration when we come back. Stay with us.
Good evening. I'm meteorologist Jeff Denoyer. Some rainfall across the area last night and for much of the day, especially for eastern shore areas. Western shore, Nassau County, for the most part, you cleared out the rain pretty early in the day, but the clouds have lingered and we're only in the mid to upper 60s today. And here's the back edge of the system. The rain's pushed off now, and here comes the cloud cover kind of pushing through. I think as we go through the night tonight, partly to mostly cloudy skies, there's still a little shower activity to the west. I think that's going to stay pretty much north and west of us, and it's just going to be dealing with a few clouds. And once we get through the clouds, we get into some sunshine. And that happens tomorrow for you. Temperatures around 70 degrees. A beautiful start to the weekend on Saturday. Sunshine, maybe a touch cooler. We'll go upper 60s. But as we get into Sunday, there'll be a front that passes through Saturday night that brings a little cloud cover, but big changes temperature-wise. Highs on Sunday, mid-50s, and breezy conditions afternoon will make it feel even cooler.
We live in a time of endless possibility. More has been learned about the human body in the last 5 years than in the previous 500. I will not stop pushing forward into a hopeful future. And with every blow I land, I know that something has been won.
Get 50% off Cinemax for 12 months. Visit channel 420 to order.
Carpet Depot. With our famous shop at home service, we come to your home or you can come to us. Carpet Depot's fall clearance sale starts now. 3 packages to choose from. 3 rooms of carpet for $3.99, 3 rooms for $4.99, or 3 rooms for $5.99. It's your choice. Free measuring, free padding, free installation, free shop at home service. We'll even laminate any room, just $6.99. Call before the special offer expires. 516-731-1324. Call now or visit one of our showrooms. Oceanside, Wonton, Levittown, or Lake Grove, or at carpetdepot.com.
Time for Citywide.
Conveniently located on Long Island, Citywide offers fast, affordable plumbing, sewer, drain, or cesspool services. Now it's time for Citywide.
All done.
Done.
Just one call. Citywide does it all.
We didn't know Justin had a serious addiction problem until he was 24 years old, and that's when he told us he was using heroin. He was good looking, he was smart, he didn't want to be a drug addict. He couldn't live without drugs, and he died from it. I take him everywhere I go, and he's taken me places I never thought I'd be.
Learn more about the warning signs of addiction at combatheroin.ny.gov.
All right, let's turn to New York now, where Governor Cuomo taking time out to promote his new memoir, the book All Things Possible, Setbacks and Successes in Politics and Life, focusing on the governor's failed marriage, his failed gubernatorial run against George Pataki, and other political pitfalls and successes. And while the governor is gearing up for the midterm elections, in obviously his re-election bid, he also has the Moreland headache hanging over his head, with U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara breathing down his neck. Now, we also could talk about Tappan Zee funding, approval ratings down. There's a lot of challenges ahead of him, but what I wanted to get to is, you served under this mayor. You've been involved in state Democratic politics. People may remember last year you had a well-publicized editorial that you wrote about cities like Syracuse and others that economically were suffering. It didn't matter if it was a D or an R in front of them. How have the past 4 years been for you or for Syracuse under this administration?
Well, it's been a mixed bag. There have been ups, there have been downs. Clearly the city of Buffalo, the governor has expended extraordinary resources on Buffalo, and Buffalo is coming back, and I'm happy for Buffalo. But the issue for me is there's Rochester, there's Syracuse, there's Utica, there's Albany, there's Yonkers. And what we need is fundamental change of the policies that have put us in these precarious positions, and that is very politically difficult to do.